As I always say, the best found footage films are the ones that take a strong, unique concept and just run with it plain and simple. Get in, give us some spooks and surprises, leave us with a big bang, and get out before you stretch yourself too thin. Stephen Cognetti's 2015 Hell House LLC, or Hell House Limited Liability Company if you want to get technical about it, does just that. It's a fun, efficient, and subtly effective chiller that tells the story of a Halloween haunted house attraction that shuts down after a mysterious accident on opening night claims the lives of 15 visitors, including the entire Hell House team bar one, who later brings forward eerie, unseen behind-the-scenes footage to a local documentary crew that helps put the tragedy into perspective. However, somehow, for some reason, Hell House LLC's acclaim and word-of-mouth cult following spawned a complete trilogy that manages to tell a full, finished, albeit absurdly silly, if admirably ambitious story that answers most of, if not all, the many questions the original film poses. While I'm personally not a fan of unloading an explanation for every mystery and ambiguity, I do greatly respect Cognetti's passion for Hell House and ability to bring together everything, regardless of how ludicrous it may become. The Hell House sequels follow a similar vein to the Saw sequels. While I wouldn't say they make things up as they go along, it does go out of its way to make incidental details fit the ever-changing conditions of the story, when most answers are sometimes much better left a mystery. This is one of those interesting cases that might divide my audience, where if you like mystery and ambiguity, you can watch the first film and never look back, but if you want a found footage film that, on this rare occasion, does explain itself, this one might be for you. Of course, in either case, as we go along, leave your thoughts and feelings in the comments below, as well as a cheeky wee like and subscribe if you haven't done so, and lastly, here are a few words from this video's sponsor, Skillshare. You may know Skillshare for their countless classes that spark your creativity, such as photography, film and video editing, illustration, music, writing, lifestyle, and productivity, but did you know Skillshare also offer hundreds of career-focused classes too? Perhaps you're looking to advance your current career or make that next step and start a business, or build your own personal brand and make some money off that talent of yours. No goal is too big or too small, and I can tell you from first-hand experience, while looking to the future can be intimidating, what I love about Skillshare is that it eases you into the process with positive and reassuring guidance from those who've been in your shoes before. For example, if you've got a personal art style that can be adapted into products to sell online, illustrator Alicia Souza has 2 accessible, easy-to-follow classes on the process of turning your art into sellable merchandise and then launching and operating your own independent online store and business. But if you already have a business or freelance on the go, maybe you're like me and have issues with confidence that hinder productivity and need to keep training your brain to stay focused on what matters. For that, I highly recommend writer and podcaster Emma Gannon's class on self-sabotage, battling perfectionism and your inner critic, being proud of your work, and overcoming the fear and doubt of sharing your voice and creativity with others. If all that sounds like your thing, the first 1,000 people to use my link will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare, so you can start exploring and unlock your creativity today. While each Hell House film uses the framing device of a mockumentary, it only feels relevant for the first film, as a way to instigate the discovery of the team's sole survivor and the subsequent missing tapes that reveal an alternative perspective to the vague recovered footage investigators had to work with. It does have a low-key digital charm by opening with a news report of the incident, in which the only footage captured was of a stampede of visitors racing out of the basement as the staff paced around in a blind panic. With a mixture of speculative interviews and testimonies, this frantic, high-energy 4-minute long take really hammers in that something unimaginably awful and devastating clearly happened in the basement, and it leaves us with a lasting impression that tonally contrasts with the found footage that conveys a quiet, foreboding emptiness as the team set up this claustrophobic attraction. If there's one element that the film persistently nails, it's the delicate ambience of being in this old, grimy, abandoned building where there's just enough soundproofing and isolation to make standing alone incredibly off-putting, or worse, make you feel trapped and helpless. It doesn't seem like much, but Hell House benefits from having the same low-budget limitations as the Blair Witch Project by using a real location to just make it feel more tangible. It's like any time you watch those exploring abandoned location videos videos on YouTube, there's a density to the atmosphere that slowly creeps up on you the longer you stand alone and think about the possibility that something might be watching you. Anyway, for context, the Hell House team is comprised of 5 members: Tony, Paul, Max, Sarah, and the company CEO Alex. The documentary takes place over 5 years after the Hell House tragedy, as Sarah re-emerges to share the footage and her experiences, specifically detailing how Alex spearheaded the company for several years before falling into an undisclosed debt, and to recoup his losses landed on the perfect affordable location outside New York called the Bodan Hotel. We learn early on that the Bodan Hotel was previously owned and operated by an eccentric man called Andrew Tully, who built the hotel because he believed the town was named after a demon who guarded the gates of hell. One interview claims Tully was a cult leader who viewed himself as a modern Dante, someone destined to pass through the gates of hell, but before long the hotel was shut down after multiple guests went missing, specifically a mother and daughter that Tully became a suspect to during the investigation, leading to his eventual demise at the hands of a noose. Now, if you think I just gave away where this is all going, well, this trilogy has a common habit of giving away too much information too early, leaving little room to question. In fact, during the first 10 minutes before we even get to the Hell House footage, it removes any suspicion it may have been an accident after one reporter reveals he snuck into the hotel after the police refused to give statements or testimony and discovered the place covered in blood trails. So, with the setup in place, we see the team inspect the hotel upon arrival and eventually enter the basement, which Alex envisions as the big, terrifying final crescendo in which a chained-up live actor would scream in sheer terror, after which the crowd would be scared out of the basement before they knew why. Here they discover their work already done for them as remnants of a satanic ritual are discovered, which unnerves Sarah in particular after Alex finds an old photo of a woman that looks just like her. Once the hotel is renovated into a functional state and the team begins staying there to prepare for opening night only weeks away, spooky shenanigans begin occurring, with shadowy figures, strange noises, props and mannequins moving about, and I cannot say this lightly, Hell House has perhaps the second most terrifying clown encounter since Poltergeist. I'm sorry, you're just never going to beat that evil clown puppet. If you're not someone to be scared of clowns like me, trust me, Hell House will at the very least unnerve you in the subtlest ways. It's not just the blank dead eyes on this mannequin that the team later decide to make a costume character to act as both security for the live actor and to scare the crap out of those thinking all the clowns and zombies are puppets. It's the brilliant use of long takes of the cameraman thinking someone is in costume only to look away then back to see something has moved.
Holy
The thing is, you'll see it coming, but there's a great sense of timing where you're just anticipating a big jump scare that never comes. Bar I think 1 or 2 occasions, there aren't any jump scares to speak of, but it will hang it over you the entire film, as the tight claustrophobic hallways leave little room to prepare for what's around the next corner. I'm going to throw out another warning for strobe lighting, but there is another brilliant scene involving them where the mannequins start to move randomly, and while the strobe lighting will of course be an instant turn-off for many people for obvious reasons, it furthers this tense, enigmatic weeping angels vibe as you never actually see anything move, it's only ever pose to pose. That said, inevitably the sequels ruined this by showing them move, which is exactly what Doctor Who did. In story terms, it's never fully explained what's possessing them, but with the gates of hell at the back of your mind, it's not hard to piece together that they're mannequins possessed by spirits or demons that think they're human vessels to blend in. One thing I did wish the film would do more of was show eerie, shadowy figures in the background, but what really brings it down, and egregiously more so in the sequels, is that every time they do show a shadowy figure lurking in the background, they do a slow motion replay almost immediately after, instead of revealing it later as a surprise. The problem is, you never have to look out for them because the movie makes it clear when something is there, most notably when characters do vlogs towards the camera and they're so obviously framed off-center so that something can show up behind them. Thematically, much like my feelings on theme parks in my last video on Escape from Tomorrow, I've only ever done 2 of these guided haunted house tours, the London and Edinburgh dungeons, so I don't have the same personal connection to the zeitgeist of these kinds of attractions, but I can see how Hell House has the same nostalgic appeal as another found footage horror called The Houses October Built by tapping into the playful and sometimes genuinely frightening culture of haunted house or experiential horror attractions. It helps that the characters have real believable chemistry that made me think they were actual real friends having a blast making something fun and scary, and I ended up really vibing with both their camaraderie and tensions trying to get the attraction ready for opening night. The most compelling detail is that the team want to take greater responsibility for the safety and security of the attraction and their staff, after issues with their previous venture at Queen's, where the guys were implied to be once immature bro dudes using the attraction to get girls and not taking their duty of care seriously. They install cameras everywhere they can, put together a detailed fire escape plan, and hire security for the live actor who is literally going to be restrained in the basement, seeing as the thick walls stop them installing cameras there. It ties itself back into the public and media scrutiny over whether this alleged accident was genuine or a result of negligence given Alex's history of oversight and cutting corners. There is particular contention placed on Alex's role in the outcome, given interviews claim he was cracking under intense pressure, with some questioning if he knew the hotel's history. It's reminded that while they are like a family, with Sarah being his long-term partner and Mac being a childhood friend, Alex was still ultimately the boss with sole ownership of the company. It was always his neck on the line to make Hell House succeed, eventually screwing over his team because he neglected to tell them he's operating on a financial loss. This takes us into the tragedy of opening night, which means spoilers from here on out, because naturally what transpires feeds right into the sequels. So brace yourself. Basically, having an actress chained up screaming at guests for help next to what was assumed to be the space of a satanic ritual while most of them think she's still in character suggests they inadvertently made her a sacrifice. We even see the security in the clown outfit bail instead of help her, and is later revealed to have offed himself because whatever he witnessed was so traumatizing. What we can assume is that the gates of hell must have been opened, and the shadowy figures we saw in the footage are actually part of Tully's cult, which end up attacking and murdering guests, eventually trapping the staff in the attic while Alex is hanged under supernatural means. It may not be the grand payoff you're hoping for, but what follows this is Sarah encouraging the documentary crew to investigate the hotel for themselves, to which they discover Sarah alone and soon surrounded by the cultists, because, would you believe it, Sarah was dead this entire time and her demonic spirit was sent to collect more souls for the gates of hell. It's a really strong, impactful conclusion that works if you leave it where it is, but also does feed nicely into the sequel, which places more emphasis on the Abaddon Hotel itself by following the same structure of the first film by framing found footage around an investigative program called Morning Mysteries, which interviews 3 distinct men: the defensive town ambassador Arnold Tasselman, the egotistical psychic Brock Davies, and the sole survivor of the documentary crew Mitchell Kavanagh. Like the first film, it asks for their perspective on the events that transpired at Hell House, taking a page from the opening of Blair Witch 2 Book of Shadows by focusing on the aftermath of Hell House, in which people began doing their own documentaries, videos and live streams entering the now forbidden hotel, where many people have since gone missing. This time, you could say it has an odd satirical tone to its setup that took me a while to adjust to, and while I wasn't vibing with it compared to the brooding setup of the original, it does somewhat improve once it transitions into a standard found footage film. The main story sees a group of struggling web journalists convince Mitchell to take them on a tour of the hotel, seeing as he's the most familiar with the Hell House footage, and they soon find themselves trapped in the hotel and aggressively tormented by the same spirits from before. It's interspersed with clips from the Morning Mysteries broadcast where the 3 men debate the hotel, its history, and the culture of people exploiting and capitalizing on tragedy for self-gain. It's a fair effort at engaging more deeply with its subject matter by exploring how tragedies become sensationalized, especially in an era when drama, grifting, and true crime are at an all-time high, with self-proclaimed journalists, filmmakers, documentarians, and content creators acting like their work is morally righteous and for the victims, but it's really just as equally designed designed to boost their egos and profiles, and really, in the harshest sense, what they are over-stylized, pretentious ambulance chasers. However, when it comes to the Gates of Hell storyline, its most striking and frightening point is how Hell House seemingly reawakens something that lay dormant since the hotel's original closure, and as such, its evil is now bleeding outside the hotel and spreading its influence to draw more victims towards it. It furthers the implication that Sarah has become one of many soul collectors, with one particularly harrowing scene where two guys pick up a strange hitchhiker heading to the hotel, and upon realizing it's abandoned and unsafe, they follow her in and get attacked by her now piercingly demonic look, with the hitchhiker being revealed as one of 7 missing bodies out of the 15 victims from the Hell House massacre. I just want to take a moment to say that this image distresses me more than I wanted to. Outside the clown, it's easily the best and most provocative scare in the entire trilogy. It gives, let's say, gravitas to the hotel being more than just another random haunted place, one that's worsening with each passing day and growing stronger the more it feeds on new souls, which I think helps justify the more angsty nature of the hauntings this time. The structure of the scares is still largely the same, but shifting from the subtlety of Blair Witch to something like As Above So Below or Grave Encounters. There are a few DiCaprio pointing moments when the camera turns away only for something to change or emerge, much like the first film, but it never gets any more creative or adventurous, producing extremely diminishing returns. When it comes to tying back to the original Hell House team, Part 2 does add more context to Alex's increasing stress by showing he was offered by a mysterious associate to host Hell House at the hotel, suggesting someone was masterminding events so that Hell House would draw in a greater number of sacrifices. While I personally preferred Hell House to be by accident than something by design, it doesn't hurt the original story. It's debatable if it improves or enhances it, but needless to say, it adds a further layer to the cult's efforts to fulfill Tully's original desire to open and venture into the gates of hell. Now, there is a mid-movie plot twist where it shows one of the journalists, Jessica, in a police interrogation room several days later, suggesting she's the sole survivor. Again, a detail that gives too much away, even if there is more to it. But if the ending of the first film is anything to go on, this movie pulls, I swear to God, the exact same twist once again by showing Jessica to be dead all along. It all builds up to an admittedly obvious reveal that the antagonistic Arnold Tasselman who combats with Mitchell throughout the interview is actually the hotel owner Andrew Tully, given away by the fact he has the same initials, and you know, because we saw the bald-headed man's hanging corpse in the first film. In a way, it's essentially the twist from Ghost Ship. Tully is another soul collector who offered Alex the hotel to reignite the gates of hell and commence the mass collection of souls, with the hotel apparently even being designed based on H.H. Holmes' Murder House, which is a reference for the sake of reference because there's nothing insidious about the design of the hotel itself. It's a shame Tully isn't a bigger presence than the performance he's given. It's not so much bad, just not as subdued or otherworldly, bar some accent added into this line.
We are Legion. We are servants of the snake, and we will release someone into the lake of fire.
It can be some chilling demonic stuff, but then he goes right back to being a bit of a conventional dramatic villain who reveals the found footage helps sustain attention on the hotel by feeding on people's curiosities, and then offers Mitchell the choice to sacrifice Jessica to become the next soul collector in exchange that he's able to walk free, or at least that's what I think is happening. This leads us to Part 3, Lake of Fire, which, I kid you not, is once again the exact same setup as the first film, with a rich, elusive entrepreneur called Russell Wynn buying the soon-to-be-demolished hotel to set up his own immersive experience called Insomnia. Now, if you binge the 3 films, you might notice that the opening of Part 2 establishes that the documentary was made by Mr. Wynn, who at the end is explained by the Morning Mysteries host as someone who has proof of Tully's grand conspiracy and is putting together the evidence to expose it to the world. The final film definitely feels designed to wrap up loose ends than to be a compelling horror film in its own right, because by this point there's no juice left in retreading the same scares once again. It replays a lot of moments from previous films, films to tie together scenes and plot threads to make it appear like this one giant coherent interconnected story, and to its credit, it does make sense when you piece it together, but the means to get there involves some frustratingly contrived editing choices. So the whole thing with Russell Wynn is that he's set up to be this mysterious, more seasoned and successful version of Alex, with his immersive theatre experience Insomnia essentially being the antithesis to Hell House, in that it's a thought-provoking art piece intended to be more cerebral than visceral. Once again, more spooky shenanigans ensue as his cast and crew begin experiencing hauntings that threaten to bring down the entire operation, but despite warnings, pleas, and a history of violence within the hotel, Russell refuses to give up on the show or relocate. As I said, the film relies heavily on callbacks to the previous films, but what makes it so disengaging is how it doesn't let you get satisfaction from noticing those things for yourself, as like the shadows in the background in the previous films, it undermines the storytelling by replaying those moments constantly. For example, there's this nothing scene where the main reporter Vanessa meets Russell in a field near the hotel and randomly finds an Ouija board, but instead of just leaving it as an Easter egg for fans, it plays the scene from the second film where the psychic uses it to contact the spirits. Nothing is ever just a nod to previous events, it actively grabs you by the neck and forces you to remember it and praise how seemingly meticulous it all is. It interferes with itself, pulling you right out of the film, and it's bad enough that 3 movies in, it's just repeating the same formula again and again and trying nothing new. I appreciate its ambition for wanting to tell a deeper story than is necessary, but I don't care much for how lazily it goes about it, despite one final decent swan song for the evil eyeless clown. Besides recapturing some of the camaraderie from the first film, it's ultimately all building up to revealing Russell's true motive as the documentary crew discover Russell is donating his wealth and assets to the church, leaving the nature of his show a big enigma. And trust me, it leads to one of the most utterly insane outcomes that you have to see to believe. Seriously, the ending is so profoundly ridiculous that it somehow actually makes more sense than it has any right to. Once again, brace yourself. Okay, so near the end, it's revealed that unseen footage from the first 2 films saw Russell had been following both teams from the very start. He was around during Hell House and then later again when Mitchell and Jessica's team planned to enter the hotel. It seems to be that Insomnia was part of Russell's plan to summon Tully, who unleashes his cultists to kill everyone in their path, even attacking people outside the hotel, since the second film establishes their power is growing strong enough to bleed beyond. However, Russell then re-emerges, and I cannot believe I'm saying this, battles Tully in the basement with the gates of hell wide open as the hotel crumbles around them. The following morning, those murdered that night reawaken, having been resurrected because Russell defeated Tully and closed the gates of hell before their souls could be taken, bringing the entire Hell House saga to an end. We learn that Russell's mysterious past is that he was declared legally dead following a car crash, in which it's believed he went to the afterlife and returned as an angel to stop the evil. Oh, but we are not done yet. In a further, sure, why not, it's revealed those who previously died in the hotel have their souls set free to live in purgatory, with the original Hell House team reawakening, trapped in the hotel with Russell, as each of them slowly accept their fate and move on. I mean, at the very least, you have to admire how you go from subtle, creepy, and mysterious found footage mockumentary to an angel and demon fighting at the gates of hell in the least action-packed way imaginable. I can't say I personally like the sequels as a collective whole, but I sure as heck tip my hat to Stephen Cognetti's commitment to an unfiltered vision he saw through to the very end. In fairness, it's not all that different to what Paranormal Activity and The Conjuring are up to. You could say it's a prime example to what I say in countless videos about why ambiguity matters, and why answers can never fulfill the expectations set by the mystery. Because what's in your head might never translate on screen in a way that's as truly effective as it needs to be to have a lasting impact. At the same time, the choice is yours. Enjoy the first film and appreciate the mystery, or further indulge in the answers and appreciate the commitment.